everyone for attending our lovely session here with Laura Louise Green as their wellness ambassador for the week. We have a special thank you to our Westward Whiskey sponsors that have provided us with the ability to be able to do this lovely program this week. Additionally, have provided us with really amazing raffle packages that if you haven't seen, you should definitely check out on our Instagram. And yeah, this is our final week and our final class for reFOHcus. For those of you who have not been to any of the prior sessions, reFOHcus is a program that focuses on intentional movement that was relevant for some of the previous classes that we offered, and mindfulness. So we're doing mindfulness with mental health this week, and I will let Laura kick it off.
So first, I just want to say that I'm drinking a cocktail.
Nice.
Nice. It's with Westward Whiskey, peach juice, ginger syrup, and a little bit of manzanilla sherry. And it's a nice, like, starting off the Labor Day weekend, right, situation.
Yes.
Very tasty. Kind of chill on the whiskey because it is still only noon, but, you know, pretty delicious.
So low ABV.
A little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. Also, I want to say, as we go through this presentation, the other ones have been a little bit like lecture-y. This one is more interactive. Like, since we are talking more about community strengths as opposed to like personal emotional intelligence or identifying personal strengths, I want all y'all to be a part of this, right? So a little bit about me, if this is your first time tuning in, my name is Laura Louise Green. I am a licensed professional counselor as well as an industry. It's been quite a long time, a few decades now, so I think I can call myself an industry veteran. But yeah, I've worked in the hospitality industry since I was 17 years old. I've been in more of a craft area of it for the last 10 years. I currently work for the Winebow Group. Well, we're not the Winebow Group anymore. We're just Winebow. But I am the regional spirit specialist. So I do a lot of spirits education, a lot of cocktail consultation. I work with suppliers and stuff like that. So I'm very much entrenched in the industry. But on top of that, I also have my license to practice as a therapist if I wanted to practice as a therapist. What I ended up doing instead, because this industry needs help, is working from an educational standpoint to create community interventions like this one for our mental health. So this course in particular, I'm especially excited about because it's not, like I said, not just me lecturing at you all about like this is this and this is this. This is where we can start really implementing action, where, you know, individuals within our industry can have a little buy-in into what happens in our industry, what our actionable items are. So I'm really excited about this. All of that being said, I mean, this one is pretty straightforward, not therapy, but I have to say, since I am a therapist, this is not therapy. There are some resources here if you do want to start seeing a therapist, or if something comes up during this is pretty gentle, but if something comes up that you're like, oh, I felt a thing, that was an interesting feeling to have, then these are some resources for you to either find a therapist or to talk to somebody right now. Also, it's Suicide Prevention Month, BT Dubs. So if you, I need to get on this, but if you want to follow me at Healthy Pour, like at healthy.pour, I will be putting out some resources around suicide prevention, you know, from every step of like early intervention, like, because suicide prevention isn't just crisis, it's like the early stuff too. So I'll be putting step-by-step pieces to like help people understand a little bit about that. Total sidebar, but anyway, yeah. And if you don't have insurance, Open Path Collective is a really great resource for low cost therapy from practitioners who have sliding scale, excuse me. All right, cool. So Monday and Wednesday, we talked about identifying, you know, kind of building self-knowledge, emotional intelligence. And then we took that piece and we talked about like inserting that personal data that you're collecting and applying it to setting and achieving goals, right? Now for this, I'm taking it away from the individual and putting it into a broader sense. So when you are looking at pieces like emotional intelligence and self-awareness and self-knowledge, all of those things can also be applied to communities. So if we were to look at like the individual and the community as single units, right? In like individuals have behavior, we have ways of thinking, we have patterns of thinking, we have strengths, we have growing edges, all of these pieces. The same can be true, the same is true for a community. And that community can be a bar team, a kitchen team, a management team, or an industry as a whole. So communities have rules that they follow, patterns, biases, like it's just a big monolith moving together. And these behaviors and these rules and these lanes that we adhere to and stay in, that is culture. So when we're talking about this, like a community behavior, those rules, that is what culture is. So as we talk about this is very much talking about how do we shift the culture of our industry so that we can address mental health issues. This is my jam. I love this. So this is where it starts to get interactive. And feel free to like unmute yourself or just chime in, or if you want to add stuff to the chat. The first thing I want to ask is, I should also say this, working from a strengths-based approach, when you are identifying your self-knowledge or your community knowledge or better understanding the emotional intelligence of a community or an individual, it's a great way to start doing that is to identify what your strengths are and identify the spots maybe that you're not as strong, that you would like to be stronger. Because if you can fill the space, like if you think of yourself as like a jar or the community as a jar, if you can fill that space with more strengths, or build the things that you want to be strong, it doesn't leave as much room for maybe some of the behaviors that are as problematic, right? Does that make sense? So if we work from a strengths-based approach, then we're essentially filling the jar with the stuff that we want in the jar so that the other stuff can't really survive. So the first step in utilizing a strengths-based approach is to identify the strengths. So I would like to hear from you all what you think are like we can talk about hospitality or even just beverage, whatever. Like, what are the strengths of our community?
We have an amazing ability to pivot. The word of 2020, pivot.
Yep. What else? We're malleable. We can change.
I think there's a good amount of solidarity in the community.
Yep. Like even though we're not always the best at it, there is a strong intention to stand with each other, to help each other, to feel connected to each other. What else?
We have a surplus of resources available to us that we can extend to others.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add to that we are a very creative community, that we're very good at, identifying problems, not always good at fixing them, but we're getting better, But we're good problem solvers though, right? I mean, I think. Like, we can walk into a bar or restaurant and see, like, I can solve this problem, I can solve this problem. Also, like, if you have a guest sit down at the bar and they want something whiskey-based and not too sweet, but fruity and appropriate for the season, and, like, we can problem solve that. Like, we can put different pieces together, utilize the knowledge that we have, and create something that's beautiful. So those are all things that we can apply to our community and towards creating a culture that is more supportive of our mental health. So I think that these are really great ones to start with. So then from this, which of these strengths can we highlight or help to facilitate our growth? What do y'all think? Or I meant to say we have a surplus of resources. Like, do any of these things like jump out to you all of like that could be especially effective to like kind of move the needle on our stuff? Not even just mental health yet. I'm talking just in general. Problem solving.
Networking.
Yeah, that connectivity and collaboration that we see amongst each other. I mean, having personally worked with some industries that deal directly with mental health, I used to be in the festival rave community helping
Oh yeah.
with some of those issues, and just the collaboration you have between individuals, building that connection, helping people understand they're not alone and that there are other people for them, have been crucial to, tackling these things and, like you said, moving that needle in a better direction.
Yeah. I mean, even a silver lining, if you can call it that, of like the COVID situation is I think a lot of people jumped into action. And I mean, like Lauren, you and I in particular, we didn't know each other before this global crisis. And now we do. And we're working a lot together towards the same goals. Like we're able to connect with other people on a national and often international scale to address these issues. And since we do have really strong networking skills already within our work, it makes this a lot easier. So that connection and how that moves into collaboration and that creative collaboration, right? Does that make sense? What else?
I would also like to say that I feel like as compared to like other industries, I feel like our industry has like people that are just widely multifaceted. Like you have people that were former therapists where they have degrees in other areas. And I think because our industry is so widely tight knit, that you're able to find somebody that can like help you in other areas in your life other than just being a better bartender or hospitality major.
Yeah. I mean, Lauren, her degree is in nursing. Actually, it's funny because I just recorded the Focus on Health podcast with Alex on Wednesday. And we were talking about exactly this, that people don't, I mean, there are some, but people don't generally come to this industry. Like you don't graduate high school typically and be like, you know what? I want to be a craft bartender. That's what I want to do. I think that's changing, but especially within like my generation of bartenders, and I would say the one before and a little bit the one after, we all started as something else. And then we moved into this realm. It was something that we fell into and then fell in love with. But that means like, in terms of networking, collaboration, connection, bringing in that surplus of resources, we have resources already within our community to help address some of these issues that we're encountering. I would say a growing edge of our community is that we also aren't very good at utilizing outside help. We're not really good at asking for help in general. We're very good at providing help, but we're not very good at asking help. So I would say that's a place that we can build some strengths as well. I think it was Brene Brown that was like, do you know how good it feels to help somebody? Like, give that gift to somebody and let them help you. I mean, it's kind of, I have a hard time asking for help. So I'm kind of talking out of my butt right now, but it is an area that we can grow. What do you all think about that? Like building that area of growth for like asking for help?
So
yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
No, I talk too much.
But your voice is so beautiful.
All right. So I believe in utilizing subject matter experts, and it's something my boyfriend says often, and it's true, especially with starting Focus on Health. We reached out to a lot of people who were very good at what they did, and that's just proven to be very helpful for us.
Yeah. Danny, what were you going to say?
She took the words right out of my mouth.
Amazing.
I will admit, Laura, it's interesting that you bring up that, because like now that I really think about it, when you said we're good as an industry for providing help or providing that aid, but in return we are bad at asking. I've never looked at it like that. But when I think about my experiences and I think about like the team that I would bartend with, we were great at giving that support to each other. But when something needed, if one of us needed something per se, there was very much that lack of like asking. And a simple example that I have was, say some of the not even the cocktail ingredients, just like some of the bar tech would fall apart. Like some of the registers would drop out or the Wi-Fi wouldn't connect. And more times than not, someone's always like, no, I can handle it. I'll take care of it. And they couldn't fix it. And we'd be stuck trying to resolve this issue and we couldn't get more drinks out, for example. And I'm standing there, I'm like, guys, I used to work in technology. I've been able, I work as an engineer on this side. Like that was my degree and I can help fix this, but no one would ever come to me for it. And so I'd always have to step in and provide it. And when I think about that exact situation, right, it's why didn't anyone just come ask me instead of me having to come in and acknowledge it and essentially provide the service myself? So I think, yes, you're right. There is that kind of within our industry, that lack of asking for the help when it could be easily requested. And as already mentioned in this session, a lot of us come from multifaceted backgrounds. And I think that's a total advantage we should try to leverage. So this is my little story there, I guess.
No, but it's a perfect example because like these behaviors and, you know, that's kind of, I would say within our industry, that's a core belief that we adhere to, that we can handle everything on our own, that we can do it. We're self-sufficient. You know, everyone in this industry, I shouldn't say everyone, most folks are really hard workers, right?
Yeah.
And there's a drive to be able to accomplish a lot. But with that sometimes comes that sort of turning ourselves into silos. It's like, I would say within our industry, we are very hard workers, but we're little silos within a community, which is very isolating and lonely. You know, it can be anyway.
Yeah.
So something that I like to think about, I mean, and so I think about it a lot, like in my bartending days, how none of us really asked for help. We just jumped in and did something, or you know, or martyred ourselves and like just took care of it and expected someone to read our minds, and then we're angry for the rest of the shit. Like, I can't believe you didn't have all those lemons. How dare you? And then it comes out at the bar afterwards when everyone's drunk. But those behaviors then translate into when we need to ask for help in bigger ways, right? Like if we're not practiced at asking for help and accepting help, then it translates into bigger things. Like, I'm having issues with my mental health. I'm sad all the time. I'm getting burned out. I need some support, you know? So that being said, I didn't mean to go on a tangent with that. I kind of did, but I'm move on from it. Because next then I want to take all of that into consideration and say, and ask, which strengths can we apply directly to our mental health? And I think the first one is the ability to provide help, how much we love providing help, and how good it feels to provide that help, and how we can grant that to the people who we care about within our community to let them help us, right? I think that's one place to start, but I'm interested in what else you think of those strengths. What can we directly apply to improving our mental health?
I think maybe like when it comes to like personal mental health, but I think the more people have the conversation and apply it to like as a group and as a whole, and use certain practices to help the team feel more comfortable about their own mental health, I think creating like I'm saying like a lot. I feel like if the industry was providing more safe spaces for people to be allowed to like recognize that they have mental health issues. A lot of us deal and battle with a lot of things, and it's not just a check it at the door type of thing, because sometimes people can't do that. You know, sometimes people can, and that's wonderful. But, just creating a safe space to be like, it's okay to not be okay, but let's communicate about it. And I think people kind of feeling a little bit more accepted and not necessarily just like buried with it will kind of help facilitate the conversation a little bit and create an open door to where people feel like, I'm having trouble, I'm struggling, I don't know what to do about it. And then it's like, okay, well, let's find you some resources. And I think that could maybe be something that'll help with helping people who have mental health and don't know what to do about it in this industry.
Something that you said really, well, a lot that you said resonated with me and is right in line with my thinking. But, the whole it's okay not to be okay thing, I love it. And I love the movement of destigmatizing, when someone's experiencing mental health issues, but there has to be a but after that. Like, you know what I mean? Or an and. Like, it's okay not to be okay, but you need to communicate about it. But you need to address it. But you need to ask for help about it. Like, just to stop at it's okay not to be okay, there's so much more work after that. That's just the very first step. So I want to acknowledge that. And I'm really grateful that you said it in the way that you did. Because sometimes when I hear it's okay not to be okay, I just kind of go like,
right, we don't want to stop there. Yeah, you definitely don't want to like stop there. Like, just acknowledging it is a lot, but it's just the beginning. And I think like part of like creating that safe space, like letting people know, obviously exactly what you just said, just finishing that sentence, it's okay not to be okay, but let's work through it. How can we better facilitate this space for you here? You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that. I think maybe just kind of opening the and not even like pointing anybody out, but just like kind of saying like, hey, we have this open door policy. If you have something going on, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what else I think it is? It's this idea of reciprocity. And like, think about bars in general. We're praised on how much we can contribute and how much we can give and the knowledge we have there. And not that we're scolded when we ask for help, and not that it's necessarily frowned upon, but there's no praise associated with that. And like, Laura, we've had this conversation before, like people who go to school and they get a certificate and they have this tangible piece of paper, and then people who become bartenders and they're really good, they don't have a piece of paper saying you're a bartender. And I think that because our minds associate like praise with a certificate and like a degree in the same matter, in the same way, we are not creating safe spaces in that regard and in that manner. So I know when I'm managing bars, it's always like, listen, you're praised for as much as you give and get. It's like, it's a give and receive, right? Like you have to give and be able to receive as well. So it's if once we break that mindset, I feel like we're placing ourselves in a much better situation.
You know what? That's amazing insight. And like my head is kind of like spinning with ideas from that, because I also realize I think I'm pretty okay at giving praise, but I could probably be a lot better. Like I could probably give praise more often, because something that I often crave is that acknowledgement, or that the praise of like, you're doing a good job, you're on the right track, this is helpful, this is, like, not just because I want my ego stroked, but because they're like checkpoints of like, what I'm doing is contributing to whatever it is I'm trying to achieve. You know what I mean? That sort of like social affirmation is really important. And I crave it and I love it, It also, that affirmation and that praise is actually a massive mitigator of burnout, which is a huge issue within our community. But if we can even like praise each other more, like we're really good at being like, I love this cocktail, or I like that person, or that person's my friend, or whatever. But if we can find ways to actively praise each other more and acknowledge each other's accomplishments, that's going to be really helpful for people too. Also, if you praise someone's like positive behavior, helpful behavior, they're more likely to engage in that helpful behavior more. Right? So, I mean, that kind of touches on the whole like normalizing overworking, normalizing drinking too much. If we can go from a strengths-based perspective there and praise the positive behavior and foster that, that's going to make a huge impact on our community. It's also going to normalize caring for each other in a positive way instead of like talking shit or whatever, you know? So yeah, there's definitely something to that. So like two main things that I'm seeing come from this right now is normalizing asking for help and normalizing praise, and normalizing praise in the positive way that we want to see more behavior grow from, right?
I think one thing that I just want to add to that
Mhm.
is maybe normalizing, like cutting the negative talk, you know?
Mhm.
Like, I feel like I've seen management before, and it's, you know, I've worked in quite a few different places, so I feel like I've heard it basically everywhere. And it's almost like management will just kind of sit and listen to the negative talk,
Mhm.
and it's like out in the open. And sometimes it's like, I feel like there should be a better time and place for things like that. So I
Yeah.
think the more that they kind of like navigate through that negative talk and just kind of eliminate it and make it like, hey, if this is something you want to say, let's make it super private, you
Right.
know?
Oh, for sure. Like using your discretion when having challenging conversations. You know, it's not always for everyone, but like that negative talk that like that is exactly the opposite of what I think as a community we should foster more of. So also empowering ourselves to speak up when someone's like engaging in that negative talk, that negative conversation, and being like, is this a helpful conversation right now? You know, you don't have to be like, don't talk like that, but like really pose the question of like, is this a helpful conversation? Is this going to solve anything? Usually the answer is no, you know? So turning the volume down on those things and turning the volume up on the praise, or addressing maybe problematic issues as growing edges, which is something that I use all the time. That's, again, like a strengths-based standpoint. Be like, this is something to work on and you can grow from it, right? So it's all about like reframing and, you know, building on those, on our strengths. I want to look at a few of these other things that we brought up. You know, ability to pivot, that malleability is really important in changing, you know, changing culture and adapting to change. You know, solidarity, we want to look out for each other. We love each other. We don't want any harm to come to each other. I think we all want to be in a happier and healthier industry, you know, and it's important that we band together and help each other to achieve that. There's something I want to bring up too. I know I'm running over on time, but what's my next slide? Perfect. But there's something called, we talk often about self-care, you know, and what self-care is. And of course, like, you know, the wellness community has usurped the term self-care to be, you know, associated with Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop and that whole like white lady bubble bath situation. But self-care is really, really important to our personal well-being. And it doesn't always mean a glass of wine and a bubble bath. It also means like having hard conversations with ourselves, doing that shadow work, all of that stuff. But a lot of emphasis is put on self-care, but I don't think enough emphasis is put on community care. And community care is, and I also think that that emphasis isn't there because, I mean, as a Western culture, we're very, you know, individualistic, right? Where there are so many other cultures that are far more community, value community over the individual. But community care is like, I have a lot to do today. Can you come over and help clean my house? Like, or I have this project that I have to work on, and offering that help and accepting that help and tackling things together as a neighborhood, community, as a bar team, whatever that looks like, and practicing those pieces, because we have all the strengths in order to achieve that. We just have to put them into practice, right? Community care is awesome, super, super awesome. But just for this last slide, how do we actionably utilize these strengths that we've identified? Like, what are some ways that you all can think of right now in what your day looks like today, or your weekend, or the next week, that we can take these strengths that we've talked about and put to action as you engage with other folks?
So something that I've tried to do during quarantine, because I mean, I just honestly have the time, is I've noticed that I've gained followers or just have people who follow me that I don't know, and I've gone out of my way to either introduce myself and message them to expand that networking aspect, or just, you know, to check in on people I haven't spoken to in a while and say, you know, how is your heart today? That's like my new thing, because I hate this "how are you" business.
Same.
And yeah, and it's pretty awesome, because I've been able to establish new friendships and just connections with people that I wouldn't necessarily have had the time to do before.
Yeah. When you asked me how my heart was, I was having like a day, and I was like, if you had asked how are you, I'd probably been like, yeah, you know, fine. But like, how's your heart? Oh, girl, it was heavy. It was a heavy heart day. And
I know.
you know, asking that question, asking pointed questions like that. How did you sleep last night? That kind of stuff. It allows people to feel seen. They might not answer truthfully still, but they still feel seen. And that's important. What else? What else could be? Also, I'll say another thing about that, Lauren, is asking questions like that make it easier for people then to ask for help if they need it.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you're establishing yourself as someone who wants to see them, right? And really wants to know how they are and cares about them. So that's a big barrier that's already been dropped to asking for help, because like, I know that I can come to you for help if I need it, because you've exhibited that I can, you know? So that's important.
Yeah, that verbiage actually came from one of the training from Allison courses, specifically dealing with like COVID and communicating. I would highly
Those
recommend
Allison
taking that.
courses are bomb. I have a bunch of them up on the Healthy Poor website, healthypoor.org. There's a bunch of COVID related trainings, anywhere from like an hour, 15 minutes to 15 hours that you can engage in. And there's like, there's a few COVID trainings on there, COVID specific trainings on there too. If you're a manager, like stuff like about managing through change, that is really, really helpful. So definitely check those out. Lauren, I love that you got that from that. That warms my heart.
But it's also nice because you can make it specific to yourself, right? Like,
yeah,
that's something I would say. That's not something everyone else would say, you know?
For sure. I ask people like, how's your head and heart? That's something that I do say a lot. Yeah. What else, y'all?
No, I love what we're doing like right here, right now, and have been doing, and all of this like collection of people from across the internet, I suppose, in the community. And so just continuing to like, all these, you know, virtual platforms have really brought us all kind of closer together throughout all of this. And I hope that some of this, you know, continues to continue.
Same.
I think one of the strengths we brought up earlier in this conversation, and we haven't really dove a whole lot into, but on the aspect that this industry is highly creative. And this is something I've been dealing with some friends and friends of friends that we talk about, where, you know, they haven't engaged in their creative passions as of late. And those things are, you know, the outlets that allow them to express themselves in a manner that's both emotional and creative. And so when we speak towards, you know, kind of like taking care of yourself, or, you know, that community care in both aspects, opening up that creative outlet, whether for me, maybe it's like photography, or for someone else, it's music, or for many of us in the industry, it's creating cocktails, it's crafting those things, coming up and innovating and being creative with what we create. Is a great outlet to ensure that our mental health is stable. But then I also challenge people to extend beyond that, share your creativity. If you are using a social media platform, post maybe that recipe or that picture, or involve other people, get them to try your cocktail. Or in my case, with photography, I like to take pictures, and the things that I do with my friends, I'll post them, and it opens up, you know, the connection with them saying, hey, I remember that picture when we did that together. And then it starts that conversation again on social media, like, hey, how have you been? How are things going? Yeah, I remember that time. It was good. And just using our creativity to help bridge the gap to build that connection with other people, I think is something that really helps on the mental health side. It allows you to open up yourself and have that outlet for creativity, but it also has the opportunity to build connections with other people.
So true. And I love that you said that, because I mean, that ticks a lot of boxes in a few ways. Like identity, I think it's a big thing within the bartending and food and beverage community in general, of like, I am a bartender. And since our friends are bartenders, and our friends are our colleagues and our lovers and, you know, everything in between, and they're all bartenders, we start to very much attach ourselves primarily to that bartender identity, when we're also sisters, brothers, friends, children, and then all of those other, let's say, creative outlets: photographer, musician, actor, creative, accountant, attorney, therapist, you know, and finding ways to bring our identities together within ourselves, and then sharing those pieces of ourselves with the rest of the community, right? And then also, it's not as isolating. And I know during COVID, when people haven't had that bartending structure, I know a lot of people's identities have been threatened in a big way. Like Lauren, you and I talked about that on the healthy pour thing with Tales, which seems like a lifetime ago now. But you know, finding ways to bring those pieces together and to better learn ourselves and know ourselves through our multiple identities coming together as one, and then in an effort to share it with other people. But finding ways to, you know, still stay connected to our community, even if we don't have that conduit that has always been there for us, which is sitting at each other's bars or whatever that looks like. Like, I remember when I started learning about cocktails, my first mentor, I had been coming out of a rock band, and he was like, you craft a cocktail just like a band. There's support, like this is the bass drum, this is the lead singer, this is the bass guitar, these are the drums, this is the rhythm guitar. And I was like, you know, like, that's amazing. It was how I learned how to do this stuff. And that's something like music that I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that I could connect about with music, you know, not just mental health, not just bartending. And that builds a tighter community as well. Also creates vulnerability, which is always, can be a positive. I'm going way over, but does anyone else want to add anything else to this for us to think about, or maybe an idea that you have that you can implement using what we've learned today? It's okay if it's a no, but I just want to throw the opportunity out.
Well, I just think like sharing of stories is so important in bringing everyone together, and we're talking about like safe spaces and all of that, and so much of this industry has just been like work. So finding safe places for bartenders to share their stories. I know that there's, you know, some out there with like the excuse me, the letters to a young bartender and stuff like that. So hopefully, you know, we can go out and like create more safe spaces for people to share their stories and find out how much we actually have in common.
I love that. Well, cool. I mean, that's really all I have. I'm just going to go to the next slide just because I want to put the resources back up. But y'all, this has been a dope week. Lauren, thank you so much for including me in it. Erin, thank you for sponsoring this week. Like, this is incredible. Really great work today, y'all. And I'm feeling inspired, and I hope you are too. But I'll hand it back over to Lauren.
Yeah, no, seriously, truly like blown away by this month. It's been really amazing to see the progressive involvement over the last few weeks. And just to kind of give y'all a recap, we've raised $1,010 for various organizations focusing on health and wellness, which is amazing. And we've had 97 different individuals attend sessions as of today, and some of those individuals attended multiple, which is amazing. But seriously, thank you, because we could not have done this without all of you. And just for those who don't know, anyone who's attended is eligible for raffle at the end of this. Huge thank you to Westward Whiskey, really truly like just amazing to have all of these lovely brands and sponsors involved. And one thing that not many people know, but I want y'all to be the first to know, unless you're friends with me on Instagram, then you already know, is that we officially registered as a business. So that's very exciting for Focus on Health, and just really hoping to be able to do more and more of this type of programming for everyone. So definitely sign up for a newsletter. Our first one went out today, but I would love to have you all, thank you, get our updates for programs. And we just want to, you know, be able to, again, assist as much as we can, because I know that it is a hard time for everyone. And yeah, just keep us in the loop about any suggestions or comments you have. And thanks again, y'all.
Cool. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful and
Awesome.
safe weekend, everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
take
you.
care. Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.